Welcome to the Service Management Show from the team here at EfiCode. I'm Gary Blower. I'm a Service Management Practice Lead here in the UK. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about asset and configuration management. I'm delighted to be joined by Hakan, who I'll let introduce himself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Hakan Bahadir. I am the owner of Pio Software, and I am in the ecosystem for the last 4 years, and I established the company a year ago. And we provide applications around asset and configuration management and trying to power up the Jira Service Management functionality.
Thank you, Hakan. So we're going to start with the basics for anyone who's not familiar with asset and configuration management. And then we'll go into a bit more of a discussion around some of the challenges that we're faced. And also we'll talk a little bit about, in the Atlassian world, how companies like Pio Software go about developing their marketplace apps. But first of all, Hakan, I mean, you and I have both worked in this sector for a while, but sometimes we're asked, I mean, what is asset and configuration management, and what's the difference between them? What's your kind of way of describing it?
The asset and configuration management is commonly coming from the ITIL definition, and everyone talks around that scope. So maybe it's good to repeat basic definitions around what is asset according to ITIL, CI, and CMDB. Okay. So assets are defined as anything that has a value for the organization. So it could be tangible or intangible, which means a laptop, PC, monitor, they could be called assets. Or on the other hand, the licenses, software running in the company would be in the scope of assets. In addition to this, CIs, configuration items, are defined in ITIL as anything that you would be requiring to run your service, your IT service. So as you may have realized, both of these definitions are not putting any rigid scope. They are pretty wide, especially with the ITIL 4.0. Maybe in the old times, there were a list of asset types, but now it is pretty broad. And then everything that you have with these definitions are commonly stored in a CMDB, so configuration and management database.
Yep. I'm going to throw you off kilter a little bit. I'm going to ask you, because, you know, again, we've both worked in this as well. What's the strangest assets that you've seen somebody identify as something they want to manage? I've got some.
I mean, I've seen Porsche using ECUs as assets in the CMDB. I've seen hospitals using their gurneys as assets. They were losing them in the hospital, so they wanted to keep track of them. I have seen large laboratories using their specific devices as assets defined in Jira Service Management. So there's pretty much no limit in the definition of asset.
Yeah, there can be some crazy ones. I've had similar to you, actually. Formula One cars was one I had, where Formula One, a lot of the parts in the car are actually supplied by Formula One, and they wanted to track those, and they wanted to know how many miles each part had done. I've mentioned to people before, in the UK, our motorway freeway network has traffic cameras. All of those I've actually put into a CMDB, and that includes all the parts, like the lenses and stuff. And I remember when I had that meeting with them, they came into the room with a load of blueprints and a bucket of parts. We're actually showing these parts and saying, we want to track this, we want to track this. As you said, it can be anything. And I'm often surprised. I'm actually constantly surprised. There's always something new. You know, I had one quite recently where they were looking to track keys. You know, and you think about it, key has a value.
Yes.
You know, who has the key? Where is the key?
Correct.
Yeah. Is the key still valid?
Exactly.
Okay. And I think, I'm pretty sure you mentioned this briefly, but sometimes the ITIL definitions aren't always that helpful, are they? It can be quite confusing for people.
That's right. When we commonly see when organizations start using Atlassian products, they initially come with the ITIL defined requirements, and then they feel a bit lost because the Atlassian's products do not force any structure, which is great because you have the flexibility of doing anything. Mm-hmm. That is what we believe is that whenever an organization is going to start a kickoff asset and configuration management project in the Atlassian's ecosystem, we ask them to take a step back, look from a broader scope, and don't think about the real devices, but think about how can you improve your service organization. And then that question is going to give you some answers around what you need to do, and then how you can do work better would be supported with the data, related data. So what type of a context do you need for providing a better service? When I say better service, I mean faster response to the customer, knowing your customer to 360 degrees, knowing all the details about them. And so that requires a lot of knowledge, which actually all the organizations have at any time. It's only the thing is that they have so many systems spread around, managed by different teams, and they are not integrated. So the data exists, but when you think of, for example, a standard IT help desk, when there's a ticket, incoming ticket, the help desk person does not know all the details about the customer at that moment. So we encourage our customers to think around, okay, what can you do to have the help desk team to solve that ticket much better? What type of a data you need to give in that screen for that person? So once they start thinking around these, then they don't need to think about assets. They don't need to think about CIs or CMDBs. They just need to design their own structure according to their organization.
Yeah, their needs. Yeah, indeed. Yeah. And I think it doesn't help that service management professionals like ourselves tend to use terms interchangeably as well. You know, we'll often talk about assets and configuration items as kind of the same thing, and we'll talk about CMDBs and asset repositories as kind of the same thing because we're using the terminology. But as you say, sometimes the terminology is not helpful. It's just about understanding what data you need to support your service and your business. What would you say are some of the sort of key challenges around? So you mentioned a few already, but are there any other kind of challenges around that you've experienced in terms of building sort of your asset records and your CMDB?
One of the if it's asked me, according to our discussions with maybe more than 1,000 organizations, I've never seen two organizations having the same requirement.
Well, fingerprints, yeah.
None of them describe CMDB or the structure they would like to have the same.
No.
So, in my opinion, going after a common data model is not realistic in the modern world. So, I think Jira Service Management solves this problem in a great way. So it doesn't limit anything. It is like a blank canvas. Uh-huh. So the people who are designing the solution, like Efficode, Atlassian solution partners, can design any structure totally according to the customer's organization and the expectations. And the starting point always should be at the business problem level. Starting from business problem, deciding on the solution, and using the right Atlassian products, then becomes the question on how to fulfill all of these with the correct data set.
Yeah, I agree with that. One of the things I've found over the years is that some businesses will want to use some kind of discovery method. So just to explain to viewers and listeners, asset discovery is normally a utility that you run that either has agents that you install on your infrastructure and hardware, or you just run on a network, and it tries to find all of your IT assets basically. And there's lots of discovery solutions out there like Device42, Landsweeper, and various other platforms as well. One of the things I've noticed when customers use that is they pull in far too much data. They just pull in everything, even like you said, they might not use any of that stuff, but they pull it all in and then they have to manage it. And they've not, like you said, stepped back and thought, okay, what is it we need to provide our business or our service? That should be the data that we have, rather than say, oh, well, let's just take everything and let's just have that build its structure, and then we'll just try and live with that structure, because it's always massively complicated. So yeah, exactly. I completely agree with you there. And interesting you talk about the data model, because what you're talking about there is flexibility in terms of different types of data as well, isn't it? It's not just IT, but it could be anything.
Correct. Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think if I come to your point around what to bring in to this the database, I'm not going to call it CMDB. I'm going to call it Service Management Database, if that's okay.
Yeah.
I think that makes more sense because if you define it as anything you store to support your services that you are running through your Jira Service Management, either ITSM scenarios or enterprise service management scenarios. If you relate the name of the database according to your services, then it makes more sense. And the challenge at the moment is we talked about different types of systems storing information, like end user devices are managed by special systems like Intune, Microsoft Intune, or Jamf, or infrastructure components are managed by SCCM, or maybe their own cloud on AWS. So all of these data is spread in the IT landscape. And when you think of a common database, then what you need to do is aggregate all the data in the same place and create relationships between all of them so that it makes more sense. So 1 + 1 makes more than 2.
Yeah.
And to be able to do that, always those systems have enormous data, and you cannot bring the full complexity of those systems into the database. You need to just bring enough data to improve your processes. The main reason for that is, at the end of the day, those systems are the master data sources. The Jira Service Management environment is never going to be the master data source for the data that is auto-discovered, being updated continuously. So it is going to be a read-only replica of the master data source. I'm talking about the data types where there are already existing systems in the organizations. For the data types that do not exist anywhere, where the customer had a Excel file, and of course that's a great example to bring it into the database and make it a part of the whole data model. That would be much more valuable when you have it in Jira Service Management.
And you know, your business with your business partner at Pio Software, this is a particular challenge that you've looked to solve. Isn't it? How did you go about this was a kind of area of weakness really for Jira Service Management. How did you go about sort of addressing that within the business?
So the idea was pretty straightforward. So the database, service management database, is powerful as much as the data it stores, right? So if you have more related data, usable data in it, then it's going to help your services running on top of it. Mm-hmm. That means, but bringing data in, integrating external systems to Jira Service Management for every customer is a well-defined process. You need to identify the protocols, create the data model, bring the data in, and do it in schedules. Uh-huh. However, it is not a short time for every organization. What we want to do is we wanted to make it so simple, so easy, that any customer can connect the external system to Jira Service Management's database in 5 minutes, not more than that. So it shouldn't take more than 5 minutes to integrate an Intune or Jamf or Salesforce, HubSpot, all of them to the service management database, because they are well-defined systems.
Yeah, with a known structure and yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now, when you guys developed, again, for people who may not understand, Atlassian have like a thing called a marketplace. We talked about this on the previous podcast with Rovo from Onward, and you develop an app in that marketplace so that you can plug this stuff in. And I know you, like the team at Onward, you developed your app in Forge. Do you want to explain a little bit why Forge is an important API and method to use with Atlassian products these days?
For us, Forge, the first reason using Forge is the security.
Uh-huh.
It's an Atlassian managed platform which comes with the security practices performed by Atlassian. So that means our code is running on their platform. We do not have access to it. We cannot stop it, uninstall it, install it, upgrade it ourselves, but it is totally maintained by them.
Yeah.
And they are making sure that it is the code is secure. The Forge platform does not allow you to write any code, but there are some well-defined guidelines that we need to follow, which ensures the security, because that's one of the top of the list items when you're processing employee information, and device-related information, infrastructure information. So all of these are so sensitive information types that organizations are having the security at the highest priority.
And I know.
In addition,
go on, Carol.
Yeah. In addition to that, of course, scalability, availability are default parts of the Forge platform, and we really love that they are improving every year. It's getting better and better, and they're providing more features to us, which gives us a chance to launch new apps in very, very short time.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that, because I know you're quite an early adopter of Forge, along with the other guys. I know you've worked very closely with Atlassian, haven't you, in terms of making some improvements to how some stuff works. I don't know if again, you might be under NDAs on things like that, but is there anything you can talk about that sort of experience working with Atlassian on that?
The initial idea of Forge was not according to what we are doing. Our apps connect to external systems and bring large amount of data into Jira Service Management's assets feature. So that requires some time, which was not initially in the Forge design, because it was more for UI-based apps that would run like a native application in Atlassian's ecosystem.
Yeah.
So that's why we frequently hit the limits of Forge, either in the execution times or number of transactions or storage size, memory size. And every time we hit the limit, we found a workaround and handled that situation. So that was a good learning for us. And also, we are happy that the Forge is also improving in parallel to what we're doing.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so you and I, as a bit of a segue, we've just come back from Atlassian's Team 24. We had a chat when we were there. And I know we both were in the talk with Mike Jones about the new Assets Data Manager that's coming to the Jira Service Management platform. And I know we shared some views there. I don't know what are your views on that new feature that's coming, and how do you see that sort of enhancing sort of asset management capabilities within that tool?
I think it's going to be fantastic, because that was one of the major features that were required, especially for very large organizations using multiple data sources, having similar data types. So data quality management is not an easy thing, and AirTrack or the data manager can handle this part pretty well. And for us, that's another destination to connect and import this data.
And I believe you've also had a brief look at the new Rovo. I know it's not out till later this year, but the new AI features. I mean, what was your take on that in terms of, a marketplace partner?
I think Rovo was the second exciting thing for me after the Data Manager.
Yeah.
And I loved all the features, 30 plus new features launched about AI, and Rovo being a separate product. And the most fancy part for us was they are going to allow application vendors like us to use the features. That's going to be amazing. So we already started brainstorming on what we can do with all the data we have, all the data we process. How can we make AI more useful with the same data?
That's so cool.
So that's really cool for us.
Yeah, I mean, I just off the top of my head, just the ability to maybe create relationships based on the data and stuff is just going to be so powerful. So yeah, that's really exciting to hear. And yeah, like you, I mean, I'm a nerd with this stuff. So the asset data management stuff is really appealing because it's something which, you were talking about it earlier. You've got all these different sources of data, but being able to consolidate that and to cleanse it is also something that's really useful.
Yes.
Okay, so where can people find out more about your products?
The easiest place is the marketplace. If they just write PO, they will find at the moment we have 8 applications published in the marketplace, namely Active Directory Importer for JSM assets, Intune, Jamf, Datadog, Okta, Salesforce, and HubSpot. We will launch 2 more in upcoming weeks, one for Google Workspace, and the other one is going to be for Snipe IT.
Okay, well, that's...
And we will continue with similar systems. There are so many systems in the marketplace, in the IT ecosystem, so we're going to add more.
The Snipe IT one is quite exciting. Again, for people who don't know, so Snipe IT is like a free open source, let's call it asset database. So being able to pull that data in, because there's not many things that automatically work with that. No. So that's quite exciting.
Correct.
We do see quite a bit of Snipe.
At the moment, there's no application importing Snipe IT data to the CMDB as we are doing.
Yeah, that's really exciting. So one to watch out for in the coming weeks. Right. Okay. Well, we'll wrap things up there. So thank you, Hakan, for joining me in the show this month.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Those of you listening or watching, if you've enjoyed the show, then do make sure you share podcasts with your friends on social media, LinkedIn, YouTube, etc. You can also leave us a comment and also subscribe to the video on YouTube. That will be great for us as well. And we do read all the comments and feedback that you provide. So yeah, thanks, Hakan, and we'll wrap things up there. We'll be back next month with another episode of the Service Management Show. I do hope you'll join us then.